Ambassador, you are South Africa's first female ambassador appointed to UN headquarters in New York. Part of a growing minority, but still a fraction of the male ambassadors that populate this institution. How are you approaching the historic nature of your appointment?
Look, it is a privilege that I truly appreciate. When you see, and it speaks to when you have women leadership, women taking decisions, and women looking out for women and making sure that other women are in positions of leadership. And therefore, as you know, my minister, who is Minister Lady Pandey, is a woman, but the president also really is the one who's pushing for women participation, meaningful participation in leadership roles.
Ambassador, the theme of this year's International Women's Day on March 8th is Women in Leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. Share with us your perspective on why women in leadership matters as we confront this deadly virus and in the context of building back better.
Look, women leadership matters, even if it's not for COVID, but generally women leadership matters. And firstly, women tends to be aware of many other issues and will bring attention to the issues that affect women differently. So it doesn't matter what you look at, you'll find that different issues will affect women differently, if not more. And therefore, a woman leader is likely to bring up those issues that affect women more, put a spotlight on those issues, create space for other women to come in and highlight and put solutions in terms of how to address those issues. So, and if we look at COVID specifically, bringing it back to COVID, we've seen how COVID has affected women. It's been disproportionate, whether it's in the space of gender-based violence, whether it's in the space of jobs, whether it's in the space of taking on more responsibilities. Women have shown that more responsibilities for COVID, and therefore other women leaders become aware of it, are alive to it. I think that's what it is. Women are more alive to these issues and therefore put a spotlight on them, create more space for women to address them and deal with those. Not just for women, but for all of us to address those issues.
Ambassador, what does South Africa's role look like at the UN post their 2 years as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council? There was a big push from within the Council to give greater voice to sub-regional positions on issues, particularly that of the African Union. So what does it look like now that South Africa is no longer in the Council? What is your focus?
Look, firstly, South Africa will always, whether in the Security Council or not, it'll always focus on doing what it needs to do to support the UN in its role, in its mandate. So that's first thing first. So we are there to support what the UN was founded for. But in the Security Council, as you know, that's the body that's responsible for maintaining global peace. I have to maybe at this point comment my predecessor, Jerry Machila. I think together with the team, they did a fantastic job in doing that. And as I come in, I hear quite often South Africa being congratulated for the role that it played in the Security Council. So now where to? So as I said, continuing to support the UN in all the different issues that the UN has to deal with. Secondly, we still are interested in the Security Council. So we tend to follow because we're interested in global peace, the maintenance of global peace, in particular as it pertains to our continent, to the African continent, to silencing the guns. So we will be interested in files that are in the Security Council that concerns African countries. So we follow very closely and collaborate with the A3, collaborate with Africa Group on peace and security issues that are still in the Security Council. But one of the things that we have looked at, which is more interesting, and we are going to focus our energies more on it, is being part of the Peace Building Commission. I don't know if you're aware that South Africa has now been elected into the Peace Building Commission for the next 2 years. Now that's a big opportunity. That the Peace Building Commission it's a wonderful platform that brings together different actors to assist countries that are coming out of conflict. So it assists with peace building, with post-conflict recovery, and building institutions. And you bring all the actors that are relevant to that situation. And we see South Africa really playing a role in that, having been through transition ourselves, having mediated in different conflict situations, bringing all of that experience in the Peace Building Commission, working with others to see how the difference we can make in conflict that are in countries that have just come out of conflict.
I know, Ambassador, you also are working on getting more South Africans appointed to United Nations positions. What does that look like?
Look, it's just having South Africans being placed and being represented in international organizations must be something of national interest to all of us, whether it's here at the UN, it's at the WTO, or all what we call international organizations. That must happen. So I am here at the UN, and it is of interest to me to ensure that South Africans, young South Africans, women are appointed into positions of decision making, of leadership, but also into positions, by the way, Sherwin, into a system like the UN. So you need to have different strategies, and South Africa has concluded a framework on how to make sure that we increase the number of South Africans into international organizations.
So we don't just want more Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcukas who are quite senior. You're also talking about entry-level positions for younger South Africans within this organization.
Very much so.
The big debate right now, I'm sure you'll agree, globally is around vaccine nationalism, the fact that richer countries far outpace the developing world in vaccine procurement, whether it's purchases, distribution, and administration. How are you engaging on that issue at the UN?
Oh, very much so. Look, if you ask, the Secretary General was very clear from the beginning to say, look, what are my priorities for 2021? And the number one priority for him was making sure that he addresses COVID, vaccination, and so forth. So, and using the platform that we have here, which is the multilateral platform, it was important in bringing countries together to make sure that firstly we do have that vaccine to start off with. So it's said that now when we are supposed to distribute, when we are supposed to vaccinate, you're seeing vaccine nationalism, you're seeing those patterns that are not really appropriate. So we need to address that head on. We need to talk about it head on. So South Africa, again, is taking leadership in this space, not just at the UN. I'm sure people are aware of the South Africa's leadership taking on this issue at the WTO, because it has to do with making those vaccines available, manufacturing them, and it's not just vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, and so forth. So South Africa, together with India, bringing India on board, have taken this on at the WTO to waiver, TRIPS waiver, so that countries like South Africa can be able to manufacture. Here at the UN, we look at it from a different perspective, supporting that, of course, but saying, hey, this potentially can be a development issue. We have an SDG that talks to the right to health. So how can we still protect patents and so forth during this time when we should be advancing that particular SDG or a human right, rights to health? So potentially, if you are blocking the possibility of manufacturing of these vaccines elsewhere, in globally, you are impeding the right to health.
But it's an old fight that's emerging, Ambassador, developed versus developing, North versus South. We've seen this playbook before.
Yeah, and that's what you see. So platforms like the UN, platforms like the WTO, that's what we engage in, negotiating all of that and pushing for the agenda of the South.
Couple more questions before I let you go. The General Assembly reform agenda, of course, something we cannot get away from when we have discussions with our ambassadors. The urgent need to move to text-based negotiations on Security Council reform in particular. How does the Africa Group at the UN create renewed momentum, which has been lacking for so long, renewed momentum on this issue, given that it is dragged on indefinitely?
Look, I'm happy to say that there is UN 75 has given us that mandate for renewed momentum. And I've been here just over a month, a few days over a month. And in that time, I've already addressed, together with other colleagues, together with the team here at the South African Permanent Mission, the issue of Security Council reform. It's important. South Africa has always been clear about the need to change that. It cannot be that today you still have 5 countries that are controlling global peace and with a few elected members. So you're asking specifically, is there progress? There is progress. In the meetings that I've attended so far, these are intergovernmental negotiations on Security Council reform. We have seen a shift, definitely, towards supporting the African common position, the Ezuluni consensus, which is about making sure that there's fair geographical representation, that Africa is represented in the Security Council in the permanent category. So we're talking 2 categories here, permanent category, non-permanent. And we want Africa to be represented in both permanent and non-permanent.
Ambassador, the big outstanding issue, as far as I understand it, is that you've not moved to text-based negotiation and you have not adopted the General Assembly rules that will bring the process to a conclusion, right? You have to set a deadline, as we did on climate change, as we did on SDGs. There has to be a deadline that you are aiming towards to conclude the negotiations. That's been lacking. So have you made progress on that?
Look,
I know this is complicated.
It is. But what I can tell you is that you are having more member states calling for text-based. So when South Africa makes its statement, it says we need a rolling text-based. So that when we move from one meeting to the other, we know what we said last time. And you should be able to attribute what other members have said. And so now we are having more countries that have said we need text-based. Very few that are still saying no text-based. In the last sitting of this meeting, which was last week, by the way, more of us certainly are calling for text-based. One of the sessions of the IGN is going to be focusing on all documents around this particular interest. I'm really hoping that session will really say, here's all that has been written on the negotiations on the reform of the Security Council. But I can assure you that more countries are calling for text-based.
Final question for you, Ambassador. You have 2 master's degrees, one in social work and another in business administration. 2 unique perspectives that inform your work as a diplomat. How?
Look, social work was my very first, and I have seen myself use the skills that I've learned in that first degree in every situation that I've been in. Remember, social work is you focus on individuals, you focus on groups, you focus on organizations, and you learn skills to be able to do that. And I've used those skills everywhere I've been, in every position, including here right now. An MBA gives you a solid ground to understand every issue that comes your way. And if you are talking about a business, and not only a business, any organizations, how do you run it? Issues of strategy, issues of what is it that I'm trying to achieve? What are the products that I'm supposed to produce? How do I go about doing that effectively, efficiently, and so forth? MBA does provide you skills for that. So I'm finding that both MBA, and the other thing about MBA is that whether it's about finances, we always need finances, whether it's about inputs or outputs, it gives you the basics for that. So both degrees have really served me well in every position.
Well, congratulations again on your appointment, Ambassador, and we certainly wish you well as you begin your tenure here in New York. I'll probably be a bit of a shadow in the days and weeks ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, that'll be a welcome shadow, Sherwin.
Mathu Joyini is the new permanent representative of South Africa to the United Nations, having presented her credentials to the Secretary General on January 22nd.